This section of our board accountability report focuses on teaching and learning with a specific emphasis on Indigenous education. The areas of focus for Indigenous education in 2020-2021 were as follows. Number 1, implementation of the grade 11 Contemporary Indigenous Voices course. Number 2, nurturing relationships with Indigenous partners and the broader Indigenous community. Number 3, building capacity of system leaders to develop and support a 3-year Indigenous education plan for our elementary schools. Teaching and learning, key accomplishments. Appointment of Carly Robertson as Senior Manager of Indigenous Education to support the infusion of an Indigenous perspective through the Durham Catholic District School Board. Developed an extensive resource housed in D2L to support the delivery of the grade 11 English Contemporary Indigenous Voices course. The resource helps to ensure the inclusion of Indigenous voices and perspectives and a highly respectful approach to Indigenous culture while developing teachers' pedagogy and efficacy. Purchased and implemented resources that included a variety of text forms to support contemporary Indigenous voices. Strengthened the Student Indigenous Advisory Committee through increasing membership, promoting identity and pride, centering members' voices, and providing networked opportunities to connect with other Indigenous students. Key accomplishments continued. Increased opportunities for reciprocal knowledge sharing and collaboration with our Indigenous community partners in a manner that promotes equal partnerships and ongoing conversations with educators and students. Improved communications with Indigenous families. Increased the number of teachers that engaged in inquiry-based learning to improve the knowledge of students on the histories, cultures, traditions, perspectives, and contributions of First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Developed an elementary Indigenous education plan to be implemented in September 2021, beginning with grade 5 and grade 6, based on the indigenized social studies curriculum, including teaching and learning strategies needed to engage with the history of the Indian Act, residential schools, treaties, and colonialism from a Catholic perspective. Purchased resources to support the elementary Indigenous education plan. Quotes and testimonials from our students, educators, and community members speak to the importance of teaching Indigenous history, culture, and language. Students, educators, families, and community members are obtaining a greater understanding and knowledge as a result of our MBE course, Indigenous events, and ongoing communications. This first testimonial is from a community member who attended a night with Badabin Pelche. Quote, "The session was fantastic and much appreciated. He is a very passionate and enthusiastic speaker and a pleasure to listen to. I would not hesitate to join a future session where he is presenting. Very grateful to everyone who put time and effort into putting this session together and loved the aspect of providing actual plans to each participant, which created a wonderful opportunity to actively participate. It was a positive experience and very much appreciated. Thank you kindly for offering this session. I look forward to participating in future sessions." This next quote was from a student in our MBE course. "I enjoyed learning about Indigenous peoples, a group of people I didn't know much about before. I think this class was one of the most important classes I've taken. I've learned lots of valuable information that will help me in the future. I hope this course stays in the curriculum forever, as it is important to learn about Canada's terrible past so that we can learn from it." The following quote is from one of our educators in the MBE grade 11 English course. "I cannot thank you enough for introducing our group to this Indigenous community member. I am so ashamed to realize how little I knew and so grateful for her insights into so many contemporary issues. She is really such a good speaker for this age group, and she really peppered her speech with such proactive youth sentiment. She was awesome. I would love to send to you both student voice on the course information, texts, and units, etc. My favorite is still, quote, "It's nice that it really wasn't an English class." Noteworthy numbers which highlight the work that has taken place in schools across the system. 1,533 students completed the grade 11 English Contemporary Indigenous Voices course. 60%, 102 out of 169 MBE students are interested in taking a grade 12 Indigenous Studies course. Quote from an elementary educator: "Thank you for sharing your beautiful stories with us and helping us to better appreciate the true importance of water." Quote from a student in the MBE course: "I really appreciated and enjoyed learning about the history of Indigenous peoples and all their ways of life. I think it is important that we learned about these things because the lack of knowledge is what encourages violence and racism towards the Indigenous peoples of Canada. We walk the path together." Quote from an MBE educator: "The community member did a great job relating to students, teaching them the significance not only of water, but of the importance of respect for self." This graphic represents the partnerships between the Indigenous Education Advisory Circle, Student Indigenous Education Advisory Circle, staff, and students. Indigenous Education Advisory Circle: 15 members, an active force in supporting dialogue with lead teachers and advising resource development. Secondary students: 1,533 students were enrolled in college, workplace, university courses in grade 11 English focused on contemporary Indigenous voices in 2020-2021. Student Indigenous Advisory Circle: 8 members representing the student voice on priorities in Indigenous education. Staff support: Senior Manager of Indigenous Education and Secondary Teaching Consultant hired to liaison with the IAC and implement curriculum implementation. Contact information: Central Office, St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Education Center, 650 Roslyn Road West, Oshawa, Ontario, L1J7C4. Email address: info@dcdsb.ca. Phone number: 905-576-6150. Website: dcdsb.ca. We have the following social media accounts: Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all of which can be found at Durham Catholic. We also have a YouTube channel, which can be found at Durham Catholic District School Board.